Now, though, we are joined by our inspiring first guest who, at the age of 12, had a life-changing medical event that doctors said would leave her unable to live a normal life again. However, 30 years on, and she is a personal trainer, mother and a health coach, and has written about her remarkable story in this new book, A Life by Design. Welcome to the cafe, Kirsty Salisbury.
Thank you for having me.
It's really nice to have you here, and this book is such an interesting read. I mean, congratulations on the book.
Yes.
So tell us exactly what happened, because you were very healthy, you were a competitive gymnast, and then what happened?
Exactly, I was very healthy. There was no reason to believe that anything was amiss. What I had was an AVM on my brain, so that's an arterial venous malformation, which in simple terms means that my brain hadn't really formed correctly before I was born.
So you were 12 at this
12 years
stage,
old.
Yeah.
Lived a completely normal life. So I was a competitive gymnast. I was very active, doing everything that kids do at that age. And then, we don't know if it's related, but one day I hit my head on the bars. Within a couple of days, I ended up having a lot of blood pressure, building up in my brain. The vessels were starting to expand. Basically, the brain burst. I had a brain hemorrhage.
Whoa.
And we'll never know if it's related. Following that, so they rushed me in straight into emergency surgery. It was very touch and go, to the point that actually they had to abort my surgery because they lost me twice on the table.
Good grief.
Yeah, pretty full on. And then I woke up a couple of days later out of my coma, completely paralysed down my left side because I'd had a massive stroke as a result of the bleeding and the surgery.
That is a lot for a 12-year-old to go through. A lot for anyone to go
It
through.
was a lot for I know, exactly, for my family as well. It was a lot to go through. And, you know, that was just the beginning. That's where it started. Started very fast and sudden, but it was really the journey. So I talk about the journey in my book, and I talk about what came out of that, really.
What was the prognosis after hearing all that news and absorbing it all? What did they say?
So, well, they were hesitant to say a lot, to be honest,
Right.
but definitely did say that we don't think you'll live a normal life again, focused in on the difficult, the hard part, the negative part, didn't know if I'd walk again, didn't know the extent of the brain injury at that stage, how much had been damaged with the surgery and the bleeding, didn't know whether I would be able to retain information, get my speech back properly, the movement. There was just no knowing. It was such a rare thing to happen.
Scary.
Yeah.
And yeah, there really was a lot of, this is probably it.
And terrifying. I mean, and so at the age of 12, what is going through your mind when you're being told these things? I guess you've been drip-fed them by your parents as well, not all at once?
Well, it's interesting because I came back, I'd had a bit of an experience. Like I say, I passed away on the table, had a little experience there. So when I came back, I had this amazing feeling that everything was perfect. Everything for my life was exactly how it was meant to be. So a lot of the fear had been dulled down, but that didn't mean that when I came to my new life and embracing what was actually happening, you know, I was asking, well, why me? Why did it happen to me? Why couldn't that be somebody else's perfect plan?
So you wrestled with that and you were at a comfortable place, but there's also, I guess, the worry that it could happen again.
Oh, absolutely, because they came out of the surgery because they lost me. They hadn't actually fixed the problem. So they put me back together and they said, you can recover for a little bit and then we'll work out what to do, because the surgery was just not an option at this stage. And so there was another year or so where we just didn't know what to do. They said, don't do anything that raises your blood pressure, raises your heart rate.
Which is what, pretty much everything,
I
particularly
was
as a 12-year-old.
gymnast
Yeah.
who was such high energy. I mean, my parents said that I just bounced around the house. I had so much energy and I couldn't get excited. I couldn't do anything to change the blood flow because that could trigger something. So I learnt how to sit very still and be very frustrated
How
in life.
absolutely terrifying. And so now you are a mother to a child that you thought you wouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly. My miracle girl.
You're like a personal trainer as well.
Yeah.
I mean, how did that whole journey work, and how did you sort of heal yourself?
Well, it started off in the hospital, actually, when they're telling me what I can't do and not to do this and not to try this, and you won't be able to do this. And I can remember very specifically there was a time when the doctors came in and they talked to me, and I then lay on my bed and I thought, they're telling me I can't do these things, but what if I can? I was like, we don't know that I can't. So at the time, sure, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move my arm and leg around, but I thought, what about with a little bit of work and attention, if we could really start to change just the tiny little things, what if I can? And that sparked in me even in the hospital days, and I think I've taken that right through to today even. I still practice this principle in my life daily of What's something small that I can start to adapt? How can I continue to improve what's happening to me in my life? I've taken it obviously more out of a physical environment now. Now it's more about my family, my mindset, my business, everything I'm doing. But
how amazing. And how incredible to be doing that from 12 years old, because I've got a 12-year-old and I can't imagine that happening.
Yeah.
And when you say that, when you're explaining what you were going through, is that what you mean, design?
Absolutely. It's understanding that our current moments create our future moments. So the little things today make the big things tomorrow. So I could have lain in a hospital bed, and I've met people who have done very similar than that, and they're still in that environment. I could have lain there, or I could try and start to design the future. So I started to dream what it might be like to walk again. It was ridiculous because I was paralysed. Well, if I could walk, I could run, and if I could do this, I could do that. And I was really lucky that actually the damage wasn't bad enough that I would never be able to do it. So as I started to get back a little bit of movement, I really just worked on it day in, day out, threw my life into it to try and become all that I could be.
And visualisation is such an important tool to have, isn't it? It really does help when you can visualise something happening in your life.
Yeah.
So you detail your journey in your book,
Yeah.
but you also provide some very practical advice on how to design the life you want, regardless of your circumstances too. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Exactly. So it's taking those small actions. It's surrounding yourself with the right people who are going to support you, going to challenge you. It's really understanding that we need to connect to our current moments. Because if we connect to our current moments, we have understanding about where we are, what we want to do, and the pathway to get there. It's all quite basic stuff, but often we're just going through life, we're stuck in our job, we're doing things, we're on autopilot.
We're thinking what's happening tomorrow, what's happening the next day.
So my main message is just come and focus in on our current moments. Be really connected consciously to what we're doing, to be able to understand the design principles and bring them in to create a better future.
Awesome. Well, so wonderful to meet you.
Thank
Thank you so much.
An inspiration.
Kirsty's book, A Life by Design, is available now from Amazon and her website, kirstysalisbury.com.